believe what's happening in Washington right now. After years of watching this team make decisions that drove us crazy, we finally have an organization that thinks with a cool head and burgundy and gold heart. But listen closely, because what I'm going to tell you today will completely change your perspective in the upcoming. We have 3 explosive pieces of news that will help you understand why Adam Peters isn't like the general managers we've had before. First, we'll discuss how Peters saved us from an $80 million disaster that would have sunk our salary cap. Then I'll explain why Darren Payne is playing for the future of his career in Washington this year. And to top it all off, the truth about Deebo Samuel and the pressure he's under to justify why Peters bet on him. You're crazy if you think this news won't directly impact our playoff chances. But you think Peters is done making moves on the chessboard. If you thought Ron Rivera only made mistakes in Washington, let me tell you you're wrong. Because there's one decision that man made that's saving our lives right. And I believe many of you don't even know what I'm talking about. Remember when all the analysts were saying we desperately needed a right tackle when Charles Leno Jr. was battling on the blind side and right side protection was a complete disaster? Every expert had Jawaan Taylor as the perfect solution for Washington. Everyone, ESPN, NFL Network, The Athletic, all said Taylor was exactly what we needed. But Rivera said no. And look, I'm not a fan of many decisions Rivera made, but this was one that changed everything for. Instead of going for the big fish, he stuck with Andrew Wiley because he knew Eric Bieniemy. Can you imagine if we spent $80 million on Taylor? Jawaan Taylor was just named the worst contract of the Kansas City Chiefs this season. Did you hear that? The worst contract. This man is earning $20 million a year, and in 2024, he committed 17 penalties. 17! To give you perspective, the average penalties for a decent tackle are between 3 and 5%. Taylor had more than triple. I'm telling you this. When a player is charging $80 million over 4 years and PFF ranks him as the 82nd tackle out of 140 qualified players, that's not just bad. That's catastrophic. Do you know how many tackles there are in the NFL? Being number 82 means he's in the worst third of the league. But do you know what's crazier? The Chiefs had to cut Joe Thuney, one of the best guards in the league, because they couldn't handle the salary cap with Taylor's contract weighing so heavily. They cut an all-pro to keep a player that's sinking them. Lou Scatalia from NFL Spin Zone couldn't be clearer. Taylor is a candidate to be cut if he doesn't drastically improve. Meanwhile, what did Peters do when he arrived? He went straight to work. He saw the problem and solved it intelligently. He traded for Laramie Tunsil, who is indeed an elite pass protector. Tunsil has allowed fewer than 5 sacks in each of the last 3. Less than 5! Taylor allowed 8 sacks just in 2024. And what else did Peters? He selected Josh Connolly Jr. with the 29th pick of the draft. Connolly comes from Oregon, where he was the best right tackle of the Pac-12. Scouts say he has superior technique compared to Taylor when Taylor left Florida. Imagine that. A rookie with better technique than an $80 million veteran. I believe Peters knew exactly what he was doing. Look at the numbers. Tunsil's contract costs less than half of Taylor's. Connolly will earn less in 4 years than Taylor makes in 2 months, and both will produce more than Taylor. But here's what really excites me. Andrew Wiley, whom we all criticize, didn't allow a single sack last season. Not one. Yes, he had trouble against speed rushers, but 0 sacks means 0 sacks. Taylor allowed 8 and had 17 penalties. Can you see the difference? While Jerry Jones keeps betting on overrated players in Dallas and the Eagles are paying fortunes for players who don't perform, we're building an offensive line with brain. A line that can protect Jaden Daniels without breaking the salary cap. And you know what's best of all? Now Wiley will compete for an interior spot or be our swing tackle. That's depth. While Kansas City is begging Taylor to improve, we have options. We have competition. We have players fighting for positions. Lou Scataglia said it perfectly. Kansas City had to cut Thuney for financial reasons, and I wouldn't be surprised if Taylor is next. Can you imagine being in that position? Having to cut good players because a bad contract is drowning your salary cap. But that's just the beginning of the story. Now let's talk about one of our most important veterans, someone who's been with us since the 2018 draft. Darren Payne is in the most important year of his career as a commander, and I believe many of you don't understand the magnitude of what's at stake here. First, let's talk numbers because numbers don't lie. Payne has just 1 year left on his contract, and his cap hit for 2026 would be $28 million. $28 million! For context, that's more than what many starting quarterbacks earn per year. Washington can save $16.8 million if they cut him after this season. I'm telling you this. When an organization can save almost $17 million by cutting a player, that player better prove they're worth every penny. And after what happened with Jonathan Allen, who went to Phoenix, Payne knows nothing is guaranteed. But do you know why Payne's situation is so complicated? Because he's not just another player. Payne was the 13th pick of the 2018 draft, the same draft where we took Darius Geis in the first round. While Geis was a total disaster, Payne has been consistent, available, and professional. He's been everything we expected from a first-round pick. Look at his history. Since 2018, Payne has played in 73 of 80 possible games. That's availability. In a position where players constantly get injured, Payne has been there. While other teams rotate players at defensive tackle every season, we've had stability. But here's where it gets interesting. Multiple people within the organization have highlighted Payne's offseason. John Keane reported that several staff members have specifically mentioned him during the OTAs. They say he looks more relaxed, more communicative, more of a leader. Do you think it's a coincidence after they cut his defensive line part? I think Payne got the message when Allen left. For 7 years, Allen and Payne were inseparable. They entered the 2017 and 2018 drafts together, grew together, became the leaders of that defense. But when the salary cap tightened, the organization chose to keep one and let the other go. Check the stats. In 2022, when his contract was a concern, Payne had the best year of his career with 11.5 sacks. 11.5 for a defensive tackle. That's elite pass rusher production. That year, Payne was top 5 in sacks among all defensive tackles in the league. The last 2 years, he's had 8 sacks combined. Do you see the pattern here? When Payne felt contract pressure, he produced. When he relaxed with the extension, production dropped. But do you know what? I believe we're going to see the 2022 Payne again this season. And why am I so sure? Because now he has Jerzan Newton developing beside him. Newton was our 2024 second-round pick, and the training camp reports have been amazing. Newton is learning from Payne, but is also pushing Payne to be better. That's healthy competition. But here's what excites me. The new defensive line is built to give Payne more one-on-one opportunities. With Frankie Louvu at linebacker and Dorrance Armstrong at edge, offensive coordinators will have to decide where to place their help. Help against Armstrong, Payne will feast on one-on-one. Help against Payne, Armstrong will reach the quarterback. I believe Payne fully understands this is his moment. At 27 years old, he's in his physical prime. He has the experience, the system knowledge, and now the motivation of a contract that will define the rest of his career. But you know what's crazy? Payne might be the key to making our defense top 10 this year. Look at what happens when a defensive tackle can consistently rush the passer. It frees up the linebackers, gives safeties more time to make plays, allows corners to play more aggressively. While the Cowboys lose DeMarcus Lawrence to age and the Eagles wait for Jalen Carter to be consistent, we could have Payne in the best year of his career. Can you imagine having Payne with 12 sacks this season? John Keane reported that Payne appears more relaxed and a little more outgoing in the OTA. Do you know what that means? Payne's not tense, not worried, he's confident. And a confident Payne is a dangerous. And here's the $1 million question. If Payne has a spectacular season, can the Commanders afford to re-sign him? Because if Payne produces as we know he can, other teams will come with huge offers. Do you think it's worth betting on Payne for another year? But that's nothing compared to what's coming. Now comes the news that will truly divide opinions in this community. Deebo Samuel, our new star, is under pressure that I think many of you aren't fully grasping. And by the end of this analysis, you'll understand why this acquisition could be the smartest or the riskiest Peters has made. First, let's tackle the concerning numbers. Samuel is 29 years old in the last year of his contract and hasn't been all-pro for He's missed 8 games combined in the last 3 seasons, and since his 1,770 yards in 2021, he's only topped 870 yards once. Did you hear that? Only once. But do you know why those numbers don't worry me much? Because I've been studying the context, and the context is key. In 2021, when Samuel exploded with 1,770 yards, the 49ers had a healthy offensive line, a dominant running game, and Samuel was used as a multi-dimensional piece. After 2021, what happened? the 49ers began having offensive line issues. The running game be consistent, and Samuel was used more as That's not his strength. Samuel isn't Brandon Ayuk. He's not a traditional. Samuel is a weapon, a chess piece, someone who needs creative play calling. And do you know what? That's exactly what Jaden Daniels does. Daniels threw 52 screen passes last year, 6th most in the NFL. Samuel has been the best screen receiver in the league since 2019. Do you think it's coincidence that Peters brought in the perfect player for what Daniels does best? Check this out. Daniels attempted 26% of his passes in or behind the line of scrimmage, 12th most in the league. Do you know who's the best NFL receiver in passes at or behind the line? Deebo Samuel. Since 2019, Samuel has averaged 6 yards after the catch on those passes. 6 yards! I'm telling you this. Peters didn't bring Samuel to be the same player he was in San Francisco. He brought him because he fits perfectly into what Daniels needs. And here's what excites me. Samuel had the opportunity to negotiate an extension this offseason and rejected it. Do you know what that means? Samuel is so confident in what he can do in Washington. He's betting on having a spectacular year for a better contract in 2026. That's Burgundy and Gold mentality. Samuel believes so much in this offense, he turned down guaranteed money. But here's what's really got me excited. The improvement of the offensive line. Samuel needs time to develop plays, space to operate, and now we have the line to give him that. With Tunsil protecting the blind side and Connolly developing on the right side, Daniels will have time to make the plays Samuel needs. Check Samuel's numbers when he has time. When the quarterback has more than 3 seconds to throw, Samuel averages 8.5 yards after the catch. 8.5! That's better than any receiver in our division. When the quarterback has less than 3 seconds, Samuel averages 4.2 yards after the catch. Can you see the difference? Samuel's not washed up. Samuel's not done. Samuel was in a system that didn't maximize his skills. And now he's in a system that will. But do you know what gives me more confidence? Samuel has Terry McLaurin on the other side. McLaurin will attract the best coverages, will draw the safeties, and that'll leave Samuel with favorable matchups. Can you imagine Samuel running routes from the slot with a linebacker trying to cover him? That's automatic mismatch. John Keem wrote that Samuel fits into what Washington likes to do and excels on screens, and the Commanders have added athleticism to their line this. Do you understand what that means? The organization has already identified exactly how they're going to use Samuel and made the necessary moves to maximize his impact. So here's my prediction. Samuel will have over 1,000 yards this season. Why am I so sure? He's going to have more targets than in San Francisco, plays designed specifically for him, and a quarterback who knows how to use him. But the pressure is also real. If Samuel doesn't perform, if he doesn't justify the trade, if he doesn't prove he's still got gas in the tank, what will happen? Peters will have to explain why he bet on a 29-year-old receiver instead of developing young ones. I believe Samuel sees something special in this. He sees that with the chemistry he can develop with Daniels, with Terry on the other side, with an improved line, he can have the best year of his career since 2021. And you know what? I also believe it. But here's the million-dollar question. If Samuel has a spectacular season, can the Commanders afford to re-sign him? Because if Samuel produces as we know he can, he'll be very expensive. Do you think Samuel could be the missing piece to take this offense to? While the Giants are paying fortunes for receivers that don't produce and the Eagles are waiting for A.J. Brown to stay healthy, we have a veteran playing for a new contract. That's the best motivation a player can have. Let's recap what we've just analyzed. Superior intelligence in avoiding the $80 million disaster with Taylor. Critical decision with Payne that could define our defense, and calculated bet with Samuel that could transform our offense. 3 moves that will define not only this season, but the future of this. Do you realize what's happening? Adam Peters isn't playing like the general managers we've had before. Bruce Allen would have signed Taylor without hesitation. Dan Snyder would have paid anything for a big. But Peters is thinking 3 steps ahead. Building something solid, taking calculated risks that could forever change this team's narrative. Avoiding Taylor saved us from a disaster contract that would have limited our options for years. Payne's situation could give us the best interior pass rusher in the division if he responds to the pressure. And Samuel could be the piece that finally gives Daniels the weapon he needs to take this offense to the next level. But I need to know what you think. Do you believe Peters correctly avoided Taylor's contract? Does Payne deserve an extension after this contract? Can Samuel justify the confidence placed in? Leave your responses in the comments because these discussions are what make this community great. If you believe Peters is building something special, hit like on this video. If you want to be part of this Burgundy and Gold family, analyzing every move of our team, subscribe because I guarantee tomorrow we will have more explosive about the Commanders. And you cannot miss what's coming because this season is going to be different. We finally have an organization that thinks, plans, execute. We are a family here, and every subscriber strengthens this community of true Washington. And remember, hail to the Redskins.